What's up, Starcraft fans? Today we're doing the tier list for Unstable Environment on Scythe of Amon. Brian, let's hear the mutation.
Scythe of Amon is the map where we have to destroy 5 void slivers pre-placed on the map before timer runs out. Each void sliver we destroy adds more time, and gives more powers to the remaining ones. Lava, tornadoes, and time warps spawn randomly around the map. You must dodge them to avoid damage and other annoying stuff.
And other annoying stuff. We have Joni and Pidgeot in the call bus today. How are you guys?
Doing
Yeah,
good.
good. How are you?
Oh, me? I just had Jollibee, so I'm pretty good. Although, yeah, Jollibee's just kind of getting, I don't know. They charge for a gravy now. Can you believe that? They charge for a little cup of gravy. I just need some sauce on my chicken. And you're gonna charge me for it. My Donnie. The chicken's good. The gravy is good, but like I don't like the way they're nickel and diming these days. Anyway, PJ, how do we rank the commanders this week?
Yeah, so this is a fun mutation. I wouldn't say it's necessarily difficult, but definitely is annoying. So you do have lava burst, time warps, and twisters. And the thing with that is just it's a annoying combination, right? So you can get thrown around, put into warps, and lose an army at once. So I think what we really value this week is can you just avoid the mutations altogether? And what's interesting with this week is we're on a map that has a lot of commanders that can cheese it, so you can avoid it in more ways than one, which I'm sure we'll get through in this tier list. So what I really value is those commanders who don't deal with it, and of course those who can just mitigate or avoid the mutations altogether.
All right, how about you, Joni?
Yeah, very similar. Like I've basically ranked people in terms of like to what extent can you negate the mutators, and if
Pretty
you
good.
if you do end up having to go out on the map, like how big of a blob are you taking with you? Because
Mhm.
actually the reality is that like between lava burst, time warp, and twister, like the sort of landscape of the map is complete carnage like all the time. So moving around is pretty tough.
Pretty tough indeed. With that, let's begin. Abathur, where do we have him?
Yeah, so Abathur is an interesting one this week. Although normally he can cheese this map, whether it be through deep tunneling or other means, he does have a bit more struggles with this combination of mutators. His army is quite large in size, although you may not have a large number of units. It's just they're physically large, so they can get thrown around, thrown into a time warp, then all of a sudden have the lava burst, do a lot of damage to his army. And his units are quite expensive, so it does hurt over time. However, he is good at defending his base, whether it be through swarm hosts or toxic nests. So he does have the tools. And once you get your second base running, you definitely get going. However, he doesn't have an easy way to really push into like the third plus crystal, just because as they start building up, he has to leave the safety of the two main zones, like where you're safe. So I actually personally had him in C tier this week.
C tier. What do you think, Joni?
But very similar thoughts, really. Like Abathur is one of actually not many commanders this week, who like his top bar is not one that can really deal damage to shards and stuff. So it's completely unavoidable that he's going to have to go out on the map. Like ultimate evolutions are good despite the fact they're clunky. Like they do good damage. You can sort of maintain a relatively like small death ball off them. Um, but also like pushing into shard areas that they do take significant damage. Like it's not easy for them, and particularly when you lump the mutators on top. Like yeah, it is going to be a bit of struggle here, and you will need careful micro. Probably P2 just for a bit of extra mobility. I had him in C as well.
All right, both of you have him in C. Let's put Abathur in C. Prestige twice, second one.
I would say P2
Yeah, I
is
think
ideal. Yeah.
How do you guys feel about just going first prestige, get 7 devourers, get to max biomass, and just right click them at the shards?
Yeah, it's one of his cheese methods, but it's just that big clunk. If they get thrown and die, then it's going to be harder to start all over again.
You know you can really stack areas on top of each other, right?
You can, yeah.
All right. So C tier it is. Let's move on. Alarak, where do we have him?
so. Like Alarak has the big problem this week that like the mothership is extremely cumbersome, and like typically sort of like, again he's basically just got a very fragile death ball pretty much. That yes, it deals quick damage. Yes, typically pushing into shards is not too much of an issue. But, the mothership is a massive unit. It's pretty cumbersome. Like, I was potentially considering the potential here of playing P1 with Wrathwalkers, which obviously have really decent range, and actually using the mothership just as a cooldown, as a temporary unit to use specifically for sort of pushing into shards. Having said that, you're obviously, by not having the mothership on the map the whole time, you are sacrificing a little bit of mobility, with sort of mothership teleport, etc. So I kind of wasn't sure whether you would necessarily want P1 or P3, but like I think Alarak is going to have a bit of a difficult time this week, possibly even a slightly harder time than Abathur, although I think the principle of the two is quite similar. You do have some slightly cheesier options as well. So like warp prisms with overcharge are always a good bet. The difficulty this week is, obviously they are as prone to environmental mutators as everything else. I had Alarak in sort of C to D tier.
C to D. What do you think, PJot?
Yeah, I agree with a majority of that. I think one thing to call out is with the warp prisms, since they have to be stationed in order to be overcharged. The only downside with that is with the environmental stuff. Sometimes you just may not have enough time to get them out of the way if you're just not paying enough attention. So it is another risk for him. And I think most commanders this week, when you have that big army comp that has to move, they'll be a little bit more limited than the rest. And of course, Alarak has the glass cannon, so if he takes a lot more damage, if you just don't see a lava burst, all of a sudden your whole army could very quickly disintegrate in front of you at lower C as well.
All right, I guess both of you did put him in C. Let's put him in C. You want the third prestige, right?
I do agree with a mix of P3, potentially P1. I don't see P2 working because you still want the mobility, but I think P3 is ideal and P1 could also work.
Okay, let's move on. Arcturus, where do we have him?
So this one I think is he doesn't even recognize that a mutation exists. So he's definite for me in S tier at least. He avoids everything. Like you don't necessarily even have to leave the safety of your base or expansion once you get going. Has the ability to defend from the waves as they come up to you. Has his cooldowns, which are incredibly strong as well. I would personally use between Toxic Tyrant or his P3. Both I feel like can work if you want to drop your guys in to use their explosions as a way to cheese, but personally I just would prefer Toxic Tyrant. But he has the tools to deal with everything. It's a strong S tier.
What do you think, Joni?
So I absolutely agree with S tier. I absolutely don't agree with using P1 purely because you want to be able to drop nukes on the shards.
Yes.
Like nuclear bombardment just nicks his shard immediately. So yeah. I have literally got 2 words written, which is ESOs, nukes. S tier, like P3, P0. I think either of which are totally viable.
Earth Splitter Ordnance is 3 words, by the way. Just so you know.
I abbreviated it just to
1. Being efficient.
Very efficient. All right. So S tier. I agree. Third prestige. Also, you don't even need to. The first 2 shards, you can bunker them down. Just drop the. You've seen how I do it. I just drop a trooper at the far end, drop a bunker, change those guys to anti-air guys to take out the first 2 shards, and then nuke the third one. Earth Splitter the last 2. Very easy. S tier. Mm-hmm. Let's move on. Artanis, where do we have him?
So Artanis is in a much better state than normal this week. Solar bombardment is extremely strong against shards, as are space archons and observers get you vision, and that means that with the rest of your time you can stay at home using units to defend. So it is a pretty straightforward run for him this week. P3 obviously mainly for space archons. Like they can, they can take out early shards. Artanis has a very easy time this week. He's really not having to go out on the map. Observers get a pretty free run as well. So yeah, Artanis S tier.
What do you think, Pijayat?
Exactly. That he has one of the better cheeses for this map, and the mutators don't really hinder or impact it too much. You just might have to pay a little bit of attention if your observer goes over a lava burst. But other than that, every few minutes you have your call down. That's easy S for me.
All right, S tier for Artanis. 3rd prestige, right?
Yeah.
P3, yeah.
All right, let's move on. Dehaka, where do we have him?
Yeah, Dehaka's a fun one this week. So normally he gets he also has like a cheese on this map. You can use a lot of your swarm hosts and they'll make it quite far in terms of distance. You'll still obviously have to micro them a little bit. The only downside is that you'll have to put them into like take them out of the safe zone in order to do that later on. So it is definitely doable, but you just have to pay a bit more attention, unlike some of the other commanders who are cheesing this map. I personally do like Primal Contender because I just like sending them in one at a time to go clear the area because the environmental mutations in this case, Dehaka's Primal Contender like leaders don't really care, so they'll go through, they'll take the damage sure, but they'll just kind of still clear it, and then you can go in with your army or your swarm host if you put him in B tier.
B
for myself
tier.
personally, but it was very close to A tier.
What do you think, Joni?
Exactly the same from my point of view. Like creeper hosts to take out the shards. Exactly as Pidgeot said. Like I think that particularly if you leave the top left shard till last, your creeper hosts are going to have to like. The reality is the locusts are not going to get there because by the time you've either maneuvered them round or they've gone through, time warps, like all the stuff this mutator throws at you, you're simply not going to be doing enough damage to it to actually take it down in time. Like those waves will be thinned out. Having said that, with P2, you've got massively strong pack leaders who aren't hugely fussed about the environmental mutators, to be completely honest. So like they can finish that job off. So it's I think a pretty safe strategy, and certainly you're not having to deploy masses of units onto the map. It's not quick, and you will likely end up using your pack leaders as a combination of sort of dealing with the waves and helping out with the shards at the same time for an A tier.
What do you think about A tier, Pijayat?
Yeah, I was on the border, so I'm comfortable with A tier.
Okay. Prestige-wise, second one?
Yeah, I think P2.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. Dehaka, where do we have him?
So Phoenix.
We just did Dehaka.
Sorry, Phoenix rather. Yeah.
So Phoenix, like, you are going out on the map, but you've got a relatively like small, nice little mobile group of heroes. One of the things which I haven't had time to try it, but I was sort of thinking about this one, like I do wonder how using P1 and basically trying to sort of nuke shards with the Solarite Dragoon suit on P1. I don't know if it would do enough damage, but I wonder if it might be an option. Obviously,
it gets close on the first two, and then it gets a lot harder.
Oh, that's fine. So in that case, not.
She warms you up,
So yeah, so P1 not really viable in that case because you need it to last right till the end. But so in that case, yeah, like P2 battling around the map with a small group of heroes, like it's going to be like exactly the same as sort of an Abathur or an Alarak, really, in terms of the level of pain. But you've probably got a slightly smaller group of like core army. Reinforcing them is obviously cheap, so you don't have quite the same level of pain if they start dying en masse. So I think there's probably a little bit more margin for error with Phoenix than there is with some of the army commanders. Having said that, like reinforcing the army is also going to be pain, particularly if you're in the top left corner of the map. So I've got Phoenix in B. I think he does loads of damage, but at the same time, I think you could end up in trouble with him.
Okay.
Yep.
What do you think, Pijayat?
Yeah, I agree with the majority of that. I think I had him right between B and C, but I did have him in the end at B, so I do agree with that. I move around with a smaller squad of champions with some supporting units just to kind of push without worrying too much about the environmental mutations. As easily, or just avoiding the mutation altogether, which is why I had him where I did at bottom of B.
Bottom of B. Well, he's also at the top of B
Yeah.
right now, so
Oh, for now he's all of B. So.
he's all of B.
Yeah.
He's really
Yeah.
B-nix. All right, let's move on. Han and Horner, where do we have him?
So I know if this one for me might it might have a difference of we might have a difference of opinion here, but I actually think they are definitely going to struggle a lot more than a lot of the other commanders. But unlike the others who struggle with this, they have a way to semi-cheese this map, and I'll explain that in a sec. So if you're playing Han and Horner, the your striker platforms can knock down a lot of the crystals, especially with the fire left behind if you just space it out every 10 seconds. The downside with it is it, one, takes a lot longer, and two, than some of the others, and two, it's you'll need to reinforce that a little bit. So if you're going to reinforce it with some of your air units, just go in, kind of snipe it down after you've done your round of strike force, and if time does kind of pressure you to kind of push into it. Normally, I think this one does hurt her army comp quite a bit, although she doesn't mind dying as much because she does get some of her resources back, but it still is a struggle to push. But I did have her actually in C tier, which I know we may want to discuss a bit more, but that's where I have her.
What do you think, Joni?
I had a similar approach. Strike fighters, watching your timings, using basically, if you use mag mines to spawn camp, this is one of those where you can get it so the hybrids simply don't spawn. So you can give yourself a significant advantage here by taking out attack waves like before they really even get on the map, which helps hugely. Obviously their top bar is pretty good sort of to reinforce some strike fighter damage. Having said that, like, yeah, pushing with units is going to be super rough. Like Han and Horner pushing on this map without mutators is pretty rough. Like those last few shards are pretty well defended. Yeah, I kind of see Han and Horner, despite the fact they do have like a decent means of softening up shards, I still think they're going to be in a bit of pain really on this one. And like, again, I haven't had the time to try this yet. I wonder whether P3 may actually be viable this week and basically just trying to stay at home.
Too expensive.
Yeah, this is it. It's a bit expensive, but if you're not having to move your units out on the map, I don't know how like your ability to ramp strike fighter damage scales with both the timer and the void shards getting stronger. So question out there, but I had them C to D. I don't think they're going to have a very good time this week.
Yeah.
All right, both of you have in C. Let's put them in C.
I think I'll just call out for Han and Horner though is you can do two things with that. You can do a different order than normal. So for example, you can do the top left one as one of your first clears just to make it a little easier to push into one of the closer crystals. Just to use your sky units just to finish it off.
Yeah, second prestige. All right. C tier. To C tier goes Han and Horner. Karax, where do we have them?
I'm getting some easy ones this week, aren't I? Which is nice. So Karax, like top bars, static observers. It is very straightforward this week. So like, yeah, basically, purification beam, using solar lance to tidy up shards if need be. You've obviously got orbital strike as well. He's just got a really decent arsenal for this one. Loads of static at home, no real dramas. Yeah, S tier.
S tier. Oh, what do you think, PJot?
Yeah, 100% agree. Personally, like using P3 just to make sure that we have enough energy just to slowly wither down at any of the points, and it's a pretty straightforward one. He has one of the best clears in general, and best cheeses in general, and it doesn't get impacted at all this week. So I agree with us.
All right. Prestige-wise, third one.
I like P3,
Yep.
yeah.
All right, Kerrigan, where do we have him?
Yeah, Kerrigan's a fun one. I find that heroes tend to do a little bit better when you don't need to have a big ball of army with you. But the cool thing with Kerrigan is with her Nidus network, you can technically put them all in a worm at home, and then if you want to pop out with Kerrigan at some point, just if you need an extra burst of damage, and then go right back in, your army will be relatively safe compared to the other army comps that we've seen. The Kerrigan herself is just really strong, so she can push quite well on her own. And since it is just her, it's not that hard to micro. Her skills also give her the ability to move, which is why I'd actually personally want to go with not her P3 but her P2, just so that she still has her mobility with her as well. But she doesn't have a way to cheese as well as those above her, so I personally put her between A and B, but I landed on B tier with her.
What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, super mobile hero unit. Nidus Worms are great for exactly the reasons that Pidgeot described. The only difference I had in my strategy was I'd go with P0. So you've got a strong immobilization wave. Like I think you want to basically be jumping into the shards, smashing immobilization wave to really thin out the sort of enemy comp around them, and then you're clear to sort of unload Nidus Worms, get maximum damage onto the shards with your units, and then get your units back in the Nidus Worms as quickly as possible before they get lavaed or time stopped or anything like that. So yeah, but I had her in B tier as well.
Okay, B tier it is. Nova, where do I have him? Oh wait, prestige wise, no prestige.
I played no prestige with Kerrigan. I thought that the sort of reduced damage of immobilization wave on P2 I wasn't a big fan of.
Yeah, me neither. All right, let's move on. Nova, where do we have him?
So Nova P3 does allow like easy vision, and it's one of those ones that like the difficulty with this is when you've got units on the map at all, you've got to be paying attention to them the whole time. And because of the environmental mutators, Nova P3 is like no different to normal in that sense. Having said that, P3 does allow her to get right into the middle of the shard areas, making use of her explosive drone, making use of the nuke. And I think all of those things do make her pretty useful. The reality to it is you are going to need to move Liberators in order to clear the shards out. You are going to want to spam defensive drones onto those Liberators just in case. And yeah, again, one thing which I did sort of note, and I'm not sure like really how viable it is, but like potentially spawn camping with Nova, and then again trying to take out attack waves early, sort of bombing run might be an option when nuke is on cooldown. Add Nova between B and C.
Between B and C, what do you think, Pidgeot?
Yeah, similar mindset to what we had with Kerrigan. I think she does very similar things, but just not necessarily as well. So she has the ability to go in and clear, especially with her P3, just to kind of essentially almost solo clear it as Nova. And then she has the ability to call in her units. Like her Liberators are really good at like cheesing, well, semi-cheesing, I guess I'll say.
It's not semi-cheesing. It's just straight up bullying the shards. Just
going in and just
punching
killing
in the face.
And then as an emergency button, if you're having trouble getting them out, you can always teleport her units out as well, or in, depending on which shard you're doing, if you have quite a few already out there. So she does have that. She just doesn't have the same amount of mobility as Kerrigan, I would say. But as a hero unit, she does the same thing where she can clear the map, easy to micro around because it is just her. And with that similar logic, I had her in B tier as well.
All right. You guys are both wrong. She's A tier because the nuke clears everything, and the Liberators just finish off the shard. But it's your tier list, not mine. Let's move on. Raynor, where do we have him?
Yeah, I'm starting to think he has a thing for Nova. I don't know, but just kidding. So for Raynor, I think he's in an awkward spot.
She is very easy to use, especially when you have the third prestige. You just drop nukes. The cooldown for a nuke, by the way, is like less than 3 minutes. So you can
Yeah, I think it's
yeah,
2.5 minutes with
you can nuke a shard twice.
Yeah.
And then shoot it with liberators if it's still standing.
That's true.
Anyway.
It was like a minute and a half. I just checked it. Yeah.
Raynor. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. Back to that one. So for Raynor, we have he's in an awkward spot this week. So he has to push out with an army, and if you're using something like Rebel Raider, if you want to like spam your Starport or Factory units, even if it's like battle cruisers or something like that, they're quite expensive. So a simple mistake can hurt you quite a bit more than some of the others. Of course, you could try to do bio, but same issues with just having a big ball of units that are now more squishy, so you'll lose them quite quick. So you're just going to have to keep rebuilding. So neither option is ideal. He does, however, have his call downs that can help him clear early on, and the Hyperion specifically is a lot tankier, so it can it'll still take damage and it'll die still relatively quick, but you have time to move it off the lava burst if it does get caught in, assuming you're not on a time warp, of course. However, he doesn't have anything that really kind of pushes him over like to deal with the mutations. I actually had him between C and D, but he landed in D tier for me.
What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, I'm confident there's a clever strategy out there that someone has developed for this, but I couldn't think of it or find it. So I barely wrote notes for Raynor this week. I just put a sad face. Like it is a bit painful, really. I wondered whether basically sort of some sort of Banshee Viking combination might be an option when playing with P3. You know, Vikings have great range. Banshees are cloaked, and the shards don't typically have brilliant detection around them, in combination with top bars and obviously the increased cooldowns that you get for using P3 with Raynor. But yeah, I didn't see I didn't see a really great option here. I had him in D tier.
D tier. Okay. Both of you have him in D. Let's put him in D. No prestige recommendation because D tier is bad. Let's move on. Stat Boy. Where do we have him?
So Step Boy, like Gary is good, but he does still have to go out, which is a bit of a problem here. Like Lava Burst is not as bad for deactivating Stetalites as some of the mutations, but it still, I think, will do so. Like Gary's teleport ability is going to be super useful doing this, just to the ability to get units out of trouble. Likewise, like blue zones. Green zones are going to help a little bit, but the reality is actually Lava Burst does do a lot of damage if you get caught in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Having said that, like he does play reasonably normally, which I suppose is at least in his favour. I had sort of Stetmann like somewhere between B and C tier.
What do you think, Pijayat?
Yeah, a lot of the same points. I personally had him in B tier, and the reason for that is even though it's a little bit of a challenge for Gary, or in this case, Super Gary, because I would recommend Best Buddy, it's still Gary, so he's still able to clear the areas. He does have the blue, like a speed zone if he needs to kind of get out of a really tight situation. So he does have a lot of mobility that helps him there. And to your point, he can definitely teleport units out if he does choose to bring a bunch in with him. His biggest issue is because his units, if you're spamming Zerlings, for example, will have trouble with the mutations this week. That's where it'll kind of harm him. But he does have the added benefit of getting the parts. Some of the units will respawn, and it just busts Gary that much more. So it's very dependent on the hero unit. But since he's just super strong, I still kept him in B tier personally with some of the other hero commanders we have, just because he still has the ability to push and clear quite well on his own.
Okay. That's B tier for both of you. Let's put Stet Boy in B. Have you ever considered using Corruptors?
If we're trying to cheese, I've done that.
Yeah, you can just fly from the side, activate Green Zone Overcharge. That'll keep them alive. They pee on the shard dies, teleport out. Rinse and repeat. Win.
I had forgotten about his Corruptors, to be fair, because you barely ever used them. But yeah, that seems both sensible and viable. Do you reckon that bumps him up a tier? Like,
probably not. Still B.
Probably not. Yeah.
Well, maybe A.
Yeah, I was trying to justify that in my head. I'm like, how do I? Because I'm comparing to the A's I have a little later. I'm just like, does he compare with those two? That's where I'm having a small gap between them.
Maybe. I think it's close. Almost at A.
Yeah.
Anyway, Stukov, where do we have him?
Yeah, so with Stukov, I know these past few mutations, he's been running rampant on most of them with his P3. This is not one of those weeks. I think in this case, as odd as it sounds, I actually would rather use almost his P1. And the reason is, as his units are pushing through, if I'm using Lord of the Horde or any of his other mutations, he does have a lot less control. It's just in terms of the lava bursts. It is also a little RNG in terms of where they spawn, so they could very easily ruin his path. And of course, the longer you get into the game, not only do the defenses of the shards increase, but there's a longer distance to travel for all of Stukov's units, so less of them will make it in relation to like a normal playthrough, which is why I'm using a P1. However, given that he does still have to move, even with that prestige. He has to move like a ball of units, which again is what has been struggling in our discussion so far. So I did have him actually at C tier for myself.
C tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, sort of similar views. Although I kind of didn't even bother to contemplate P3. Like I think it's completely unviable.
Yep.
You're simply you are not going to get there. Like those mutators do come thick and fast, and they will thin you out like with no hope. Basically, it's
Yep.
So P1, I think probably the only viable prestige for Stukov.
Agreed.
I don't know. Having said that, I haven't tried using. Well, I very much doubt anyone has.
I
Like,
have.
P-
I
Try
have
to
you
used
tried
it.
P2 Banshees?
It worked out just fine.
Good. Interesting.
So yeah,
I know in
I mean,
combination with his top bars, it might be able to push through, but I am having trouble.
My
envisioning
ally was
it,
Ankalagan,
going
and
through.
he did a lot of the work. But I was getting camped at the ramps with the stupid tornadoes, but like I don't care because I'm just building bunkers. They'll eventually get through and do what they're supposed to do and win.
Okay.
oh, see, I wondered if you might have tried P2 Banshees.
Well, when I do that, I don't hate myself.
Well, exactly.
That sounds like too much work.
But no, I think like yeah, certainly like you're not going to be carrying with P3, and yeah, P1 is going to be his best option. It's still not great. You are ultimately still trying to cart a ball of ground units on the map. Your top bars, whilst they are strong for Stukov, are also very susceptible to the environment. I actually had him in D tier. I don't think he's got like really some very good options this week.
What do you think about D tier, Pijayat?
I had him right at the border, C and D, so I'm comfortable with D.
All right, Stukov D tier. Tell you guys, he's fine. Swann, where do you have him?
So Swann's sort of bad Karax this week. Like his laser drill and his top bars are decent. Like pulse cannon is brilliant for clearing out the shard areas. If you can get decent, consistent vision, probably with floating factories again, then the laser drill is going to do decent like chip damage to the shards. But those later shards do have a really significant amount of shielding. I think the last shard has like 10,000 shields. So like your laser drill alone is not going to be enough.
You sure about that?
You're going to want to take. I think so. Yeah. I again haven't sort of tried it, but I don't think even P1 laser drill is worthwhile because I think you want your cooldown. Sorry,
You definitely
I
want
think
your
you want your
top
top
bars.
bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suspect that sort of P0 or P2 for the additional static with a little Wraith hit squad. Like Wraiths are nice and mobile. At the end of the day, they're also air units, so you can bunch them up a little bit, but they do still require a little bit of control. I had Swann sort of in like B to C.
B to C. What do you think, PJot?
I think you have a little bit more faith in Swann than I did for this mutation. So for me, I found that he had struggled quite a bit, and the reason was like Karax brings a lot to this table because I know you want to compare him to that, and he has a cheese. But when I was thinking of Swann, his two comps, like if I'm going Thor siege tanks, like Elias, for example, they're too big of a group and they're expensive and they don't they're just not as strong as pushing as a lot of the other commanders. Versus if I go Wraiths, I've had unfortunately, ask me how I know this. Unfortunately, when I tried moving them as a ball in mutations like this, they can very, very easily just die to the lava burst just because of the just how squishy they are. So you're gonna really have to be careful in terms of how you maneuver them. But that combined with the fact that his army is expensive for what it is in terms of damage, you're gonna depend a lot
Really?
on the cooldowns from the laser. At least that's what I find for him. But having to depend a lot on like the cooldowns from his laser and still having to get the vision by pushing into it, it just there was no like redeeming factor for me for Swann this week. So I actually had him between C and D. I actually put him in D tier.
Okay. Did both of you have him in D?
No, I think you can
Oh.
use Hercules. Like, if you want to teleport Hercs, you can use them to get decent vision. Like, I certainly don't think he's sort of Raynor or Stukov problematic. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sort of happy to put him. I think if I think you can see him certainly in a similar realm to like a Han and Horner potentially. But I think he's a little more powerful than that. But I'm happy with C tier. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can meet at C tier. Yeah.
All right. Both of you put him in C tier. Let's put him in C tier. I think what was recommended to me is to teleport a Hercules, yes, but with SCVs inside. They would build a factory and then float it over to give vision to the Void Shard. And then the factory should have enough health, repair via the drone thingers, fire supply
SCVs,
systems, and building armor. That they can it can eventually sit there long enough that the laser drill can finish off the shards, and then with the rest of your money, you can just defend while gathering up whatever wraith force you can, and then just flying in at the last shard to finish it off. But I haven't tried it myself. That's what's been recommended to me. I actually want to try it,
Yeah.
but anyway,
I
both of
personally
you-
haven't tried that. I'd be down to seeing that as well. I'm kind of curious if that is a viable strategy and it's easy to pull off. Then yeah, I can definitely see him being a little higher than what I had originally placed him. But that's not something I'd personally tried.
from low C
couldn't
to
speak
high
it.
C. Hey,
Yeah, progress.
progress. All right, let's move on. Tychus, where do we have him?
Tychus, I feel for me at least, he was he did quite well this week, and the reason was the mutations. Sure, you have to consider that they're there, but with you just paying attention, especially if you're doing solo like Lone Wolf and even like solo Tychusing or like Seriousing, like you can definitely solo the map with just one hero and just having a couple at home to defend. And you can also, of course, if your micro's good enough, try to push a few at once. And that paired with his medevacs, if you do get thrown from a twister into a time warp or a lava burst is on top of you, which unfortunately, ask me how I know that, you can still pick up from the medevac. So he plays pretty normally. He just has to pay a little bit more attention. And if you want to push with multiple heroes at once, then yeah, you might just need a little better micro or just pay a bit more attention. But it wasn't enough to hinder him like some of the other commanders. So I had him in A tier.
A tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, so I had him in A tier as well, but with a slightly different strategy. You know, exactly as Pidgeot said, like P2 is great because you're basically microing one person at a time, which for someone with, you know, low digit IQ like myself is the way to go. Ultimately, like Sam with Super Cloak and then Odin drops and nukes for the win, basically, and that's just take out each shard like that. Each Odin cooldown covers that very, very happily. And it's just an extremely simple way of doing it. And Sam's like charges, explosive charges, are perfectly adequate on top of the ridiculous damage that he puts out when you've got your weapon upgrades plus the Odin, more than enough to take out shards. So yeah, I had Tychus in A tier as well.
All right, both of you had him in A. Let's put Tychus in A. Prestige wise, second one.
Yes.
Yeah, P2.
All right, let's move on. Vorazun, where do we have him?
So I really wanted Vorazun to be like slightly easier to use than she is, and she's still like not vastly complicated to use. You basically use Shadow Guard and then Time Stop to take out the shards,
Yep.
and then you win.
Yep.
And you just use like cloaked Corsairs or Oracles to give vision, and then everything else defends at home. I think I made
No,
the
you don't
mistake
defend
when
at
I was
home.
trying this.
You camp
Say again.
the spawn points with Corsairs that you never have to build a single ground unit.
That is the mistake that I made because I didn't have the economy by the time I got there to defend. But
Really?
I mean, I still
Here's what you
3
do.
shards down without.
Here's a pro tip. Here's what you do. You at the start of the game, you build your first 2 gases, you build your gateway, and then you send your probe out really early. You skirm the north of the first camp, then go south, then go behind the minerals of the
to
bottom
put in your gas.
expansion. Then go north after you circle the expansion shard. Put down a dark pylon on top of or to the north of the north expansion, just behind the minerals. That will give you cloaking for both gases, so you can take both gases early. So you'll have 4 gas super early before you even
Nice.
get your expansion, or before you even take out the first shard. And of course, speaking of the first shard, Shatter Guard will do it for you. And then if they don't, Time Stop will do that for you. From my experience, I didn't even need the Time Stop. I just needed to finish off those units in the first area, and then have the probe just tickle the shard. As long as something's hitting the shard, it won't spawn more void rifts. So you can just take it out easily, and that will do it for you. So that'll solve your economy problem. And then if you're worried about transporting probes through the lava and stuff, you can just recall them via the dark pylon they already put there. Pretty neat, huh? Anyway,
Sound, I like it. But yeah, I mean, regardless of my own mechanical failings, like Vorazun is very powerful. For this, I was debating between S and A, and I'm kind of happy with either. So I'll put her between S and A, but P3 obviously.
what do you think, Pajayat?
That is a bit higher than I have her, so I'm a little. I think we'll want to discuss, I guess, this one a little bit. So with Vorazun, what I found with her is her Dark Templar allow you to cheese quite a bit, especially with her P3, like her only real prestige. Like it allows you to really cheese a lot of the stuff, and then using the Corsairs.
So like 1v1 then.
Yeah, Vorazun versus Vorazun, and then using some stealth just to get in there and get rid of the shards. The only thing that I was a bit hesitant about was because of the environmental stuff and her units being melee, especially if you're on a timer with both those abilities for her Dark Templar. Will it be enough to both clear the area enough, get to the area / get rid of the shards? Mostly the 4th and 5th one. I think mostly the 5th one, if I'm being honest. The 4th one should be fine. That I think will just give her a bit of trouble compared to kind of just like the first 4. So I definitely didn't see her in S tier. I had her a bit lower than that. I had her between B and C because she still is army dependent, but I'm more than happy to say like high B, but I couldn't see S and A, to be honest.
Really? You want me to show you my
Yeah.
replay?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
like-
I could be maybe underestimating the value of the.
I
sorry,
didn't
the B and
make
C,
a
I meant
single
A and
ground
B.
unit.
Sorry.
I didn't make a
Sorry,
single
I
ground
said
unit.
B
I
and C,
had
meant A and B.
a
Yeah.
lot of Corsairs. I had so many
Yeah.
Corsairs. So when I hit Time Stop, none of them were crowding around each other. They were all fighting the Void Shard. Alongside,
Yeah.
of course, my Shatter Guard. It's
Yeah,
pretty
it may
neat.
just be my lack of knowledge about that with Vorazun, especially for the last 2 shards. So I did have her. Sorry, I misspoke there. I meant A and B, not B and C. So I had her between
Oh.
A and B.
Well then,
I did land her at top of B, on my list, but I did struggle to see her as an S tier just because of those last shards. But given what you're both saying, I'm comfortable with A tier.
all right. Yeah, I was about to say that does intersect. If you're saying between A and B, and Joni says between S and
Yeah.
A, then that's right about A. All right. Let's put Vorazun
Yeah.
in A tier. There we go. Prestige-wise, she has 1 prestige. Third one. Let's move on. Zagara. Where do we have him?
So Zagara, I think, is she has a really fun cheese for this map in general. This one, you can still do it. You're just gonna have to pay a bit of attention. So what you can do with her is just build a whole bunch of Scourge. And if you, and I've done this with a friend for fun, if you max out on supply for Scourge, you can get rid of the third and fourth shard with one wave of Scourge, just by, if you're doing the far left and both the far left ones, so the top left and like the middle left, like all the way at the side. If you build up your Scourge, you can literally just right click on both, and you'll be able to pop both at once, as long as you have a couple levels of upgrades at that point. So they have a fun cheese for this map. However, they are still an army-based comp, so once you hit outside of your safe zone, it gets a little bit harder to push. You just have to kind of be careful, kind of similar to what we'd imagine from like P3 Stukov, for example, which is doable, but definitely will have a bit of trouble with like a army ball. So if you're doing P1 and you want to cheese, you definitely can. If you're doing P3, you can focus on Zagara herself and kind of push like a lot of the other hero commanders. So I think both are viable. It just depends which strategy do you want to go with. As much as I do like Zagara and even like her on this map, I did put her in D tier, actually, similar to a lot of our other hero commanders, because I feel like that would be the stronger of the two playstyles.
What do you think, Joni?
I would keep it simple and just cheese it. Like,
Yep.
take the Scourge, fly them over the unpathable terrain, take the path of least resistance straight into the void shards. Don't worry about clearing anything at all. Like, use your banes and whatever you've got at home to mop up attack waves, etc. Or just camp more Scourge at the spawn points. Basically just use exploding air stuff. With P1, I had her in. Like, I do agree that there is still the issue of her like getting from A to B, but the reality is like it's a big ball. Like, she regenerates it so quickly that you've got multiple sort of opportunities. I don't think there's any requirement to like clear the shard areas. So I had her pretty squarely in A tier.
What do you think about APJ?
I could see it. Just the one thing I'd call out with that approach and strategy is because of the environmental limitations, I guess, this week. If she runs into a time warp, she can lose that entire Scourge. Yeah, or flies into the time warp. She can lose like quite a bit of the army.
You go around
really
the sides.
Quickly.
No, you go around the sides.
Yeah, I was going to say use the side.
Yeah, and I could use the side, just like that little risk, which is just kind of what made me a bit hesitant with it. But like I'm comfortable with her in A tier. So
all right,
like I can see it too.
Zagara A tier. All right, Zeratul. Where do we have him? Oh, prestige wise, first prestige, right? For Zagara.
Yeah, I think so.
All right,
I think so.
Yeah. Zeratul. Where do we have him?
So like, cannons are good. And they serve a dual purpose, that you can use them to defend at home, and you can also use them to push in to shard areas and such. Your top bars are really useful here for softening up shards, because they are, although there's a bit of a mineral cost, the combination of like Telbrus Legion plus the sort of reducing unit, the name has completely escaped me, but you all know what I'm talking about. That's the one, the Avatar of Essence.
I call him the Demote Dude because that's what he does.
That's what the Demote Dude. That's the guy. Zeratul does have the advantage that he can relatively easily take out the top left shard first, which does make life quite a lot easier in terms of sort of getting stuff done. If you do want to, like, you're not necessarily having to move your army around the map, because you can use warp prisms to sort of drop them around the place. So you're sort of you are going to have to go out on the map with him, but kind of not quite to the same extent as some of the guys in C tier. So I had him in B tier, probably P2, although I suspect P3 may be viable. Although for me, I prefer having the Avatar of Essence.
What do you think, PJ?
I had him a little bit higher, and because he's one of the ones that has a pretty decent cheese on this map, and he has the tools to essentially avoid a lot of... Yeah, the Zeratools. So he's got the Zeratools to deal with the environment and you kind of alluded to it. So what he can do, what I like to do on this map is just use an Uxun like P1. You fly over, go in, and stealthfully burn down a shard and go out. And the beauty of it is he can also like amass a bunch of turrets at home to one defend, but two like teleport in when you're doing that push onto each shard. And he can do that every few minutes. So he has a really good cheese for this. He does still get impacted by the mutation, but not nearly as much as everyone else because he can avoid it by flying around in his I don't think it was called Void Seeker. I think it was a Void Array for him. So for the Void Array, like he can use that to fly around a lot of it and just avoid the mutation altogether.
Yeah.
So I had him in A tier actually.
What do you think about A tier, Joni?
I'd forgotten P1 because it just never gets used. And I totally see the ability to sort of take out shards with it. Are you using a warp prism to get him around then? Because the Void Seeker is not available on that prestige, is it? So
yeah, so what you can do to cheese it is, for example, if you want to even do like the top left one is one of the first ones, you just fly around similar to how you cheese it with like Zagara and just basically drop it, put the super stealth, burst down the shard and get out.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. I'm happy to put him in A tier with that. Yeah.
All right. So you guys are saying first prestige?
I would say P1 if you're looking to do that. Yeah.
All right. Do we have a double S?
Close to
all
saying
of the
Minx. Yeah.
All of them? All the S tiers?
I mean, they all basically completely negate like both the mutation and the map. It's kind of.
I see the logic. Yeah.
I'd be inclined just to keep all three of them in S tier.
All right.
But like, yeah, I mean, all three basically pretty much trivialize the entire experience.
Okay. So with the power of movie magic, we have run out of S tiers. Just 3 double S tiers.
No one was good enough for S tier.
Do we promote anyone to S?
I think that everyone who is in A tier still has like none of them like trivialize it. Like they don't. I don't think any of maybe Zagara. Sorry, not Zagara. Maybe Vorazun was like the one that I had kind of earmarked for S tier. Like I mean, Time Stop does just obliterate shards.
I was thinking Dehaka,
but
because Creeper Host just right click the shards.
See, I
feel like everyone.
Yeah, I think Zagara has. Like, Zagara's Scourges are basically creeper hosts without a time limit.
And they cost money. Or rather, each shot costs money.
Yeah, this is true. But not,
and,
you're not, I don't think
and she can't eat hybrids. And she doesn't have pack leaders.
She has a better means of stopping hybrids from spawning in the first place, though, I'd say.
I thought you were all about to say that she has bile launchers, which I would have accepted as a use to get her into S tier.
Oh, you're right. We gotta build 100 bile launchers and just have them all fire at once. I like that approach better. And I feel like everyone we have right now in A tier, they're all very strong, and I can make a case for some of them for S tier, but it's like they're not trivial. Like I would expect an S tier. Like for me, S tier means they don't have any issues. Like nothing impacts them with the mutations, or it busts them. Like some cases that we've had in the recent weeks. But I don't see that in any of the A tiers where they're all very, very strong.
All right.
If I was to say one of them is S, yeah, I can see Zagara and Dehaka potentially making a case, but I can't see them as S.
It has to be unanimous.
That's it.
It has to be unanimous. If it's not unanimous, it's not S. All right. So who's top of A?
I was going to say Dehaka personally.
Then?
And then I had Zagara, Vorazun.
Yeah, I think Zagara, Vorazun. I have Tychus and Zeratul at the bottom, but yeah I think that's probably about right.
Who's top of C?
I'm interchangeable with Zagara, Vorazun.
Oh,
top of B, you mean?
Yeah, top of B.
For this one, I personally would have put Nova.
Nova is the blonder. The blondest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think probably Kerrigan next, and then maybe even Stetmann above Fenix, actually.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Kerrigan is blonder than Stet Boy. Who's top of C?
After what you've shared, I want to put Swann.
Yeah, I was going to say
The
Swann.
knowledge. Yeah. And then I kind of have it just like that, actually.
All right. Who's top of D?
I want to put Stukov above Raynor personally, but I see a case for both. I'm flexible with either. They're both D, so I'm not really too concerned.
Yeah, they're both decent. D's for decent.
They're both decent.
All right. Okay, those are the tier list thingers for this week. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for it, also please leave it in the comment. I will see you guys next time.